going to start the recording. We record this, and people who aren't able to make it, we share bits of it, all of that. So you have a chance to hear it again if you want. You could ask for recording. So good morning, everyone. I'm Amy Johnson. I'm a values and idea integrator, and I'm here with my friend and co-facilitator of the Discover Your Core Values workshops and our Living Our Values and all things values related, Sheila Arthur, who's a fantastic mind coach. There's Sheila.
Everybody, welcome.
And welcome to our monthly 11/11, which is on the 11th of the month at 11 a.m. Pacific time every month. And what we wanted to create an open space to check in, ask questions, talk about our successes, our challenges, and what it means to live our values every day. And that's what we're doing here. So we're glad you are with us to have this conversation. To get started, I wanted to remind those who've taken our workshop before. We have some people who've taken the workshop, some people who are new, what we are talking about when we talk about core values, because it's a really important thing to identify. So values are core values are a single word or short phrase that connects you to your authentic self, your truest self. It's something that is our inner compass that allows us to know ourselves and what we want to do, where we want to go, and how we want to be out in the world. Every day, we make micro decisions based on our values. And that means from what we buy, to what we eat, to what we wear, to how we spend our time and our resources. And we often do that unconsciously, habitually, without really giving it the attention that it probably deserves. So, because we're on automatic so often in the day. So the values work helps us think about what we say yes to, what we say no to, and then connect that to what really matters to us. And that's what we talk about when we mean living our values. And the process of discovering our values is one where we bring the unconscious conscious, and that's how that works. But today we're having more of a conversation about it because we're often told what our values are, either overtly or covertly, and it comes from all sorts of messaging from media, from our parents, our family, religion, our culture, all sorts of things tell us what our values are. But this work helps us separate what other people have told us and what our values are. And especially when we talk about relationships, which is what our overarching topic is today, that's really important to distinguish, because sometimes we don't realize, oh, that's actually not my value. That's somebody else's value that I've been living and operating from. So that is basically what we're gonna do today, is have an open conversation. And we're gonna talk about what it means to live with the lens of the core values in your life. Sheila, do you have anything you wanna add?
I think you set it up beautifully. We're just delighted to have you here. Every month is just so uniquely its own moment where we really get to talk about values. And I just want to say that Amy and I learn every time we do this. Just it deepens the values work. It deepens my understanding about values. It makes it much more immediate for me. Because I'm intentional about it, thinking about it, both in these meetings and outside. So it's not a one and done process. It's an ongoing process of kind of getting clearer and clearer about what's important to you and what set of values you want to operate from. And they can change. You know, you've got your core values, but you also have other ones. But the beauty of it is that when you think about it through like relationships or work or whatever it is that you want, discovering new things in your life, they always come into play in different ways. So different ones will show up and they may have a different hierarchy, but the core values are always there and we're always using them. So that's all I want to add at the moment.
Thank you, Sheila. Well said. So we would like to meet you where you are, because this is more of a conversation than, let's say, a workshop. Who would like to share what brought them here today? We would love to hear from you.
First, Jackie, I'll go.
Great, Jackie.
What brought me here today? Well, of course, my great affection for you, and happy to meet Sheila. But I have been watching you, pioneer this conversation for a while right now, and it's just really brought a tremendous amount of consciousness to me in terms of the imprints of values that we or I have taken on, mostly unconsciously, and like it's like values, imprints of opinions that wouldn't necessarily have been mine at first had I like even stopped to feel into it or think about it. So I have great appreciation for the conversation for that reason, and happy to be amongst like-minded people asking those same questions too. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Wonderful. I want to just say that whole unconscious conscious, it's like you get the imprints, but we get them at a point in time in our lives when we don't have the capacity to really process them. That's why they become subconscious, because they're at such an early age. We start to see and get a sense of what the values are in our family, and we learn from culture, we learn from society. So before we get to choose, they're already there. So the beauty of doing the work is around really kind of like pulling that apart and seeing which ones fit and which ones we kind of inherited without having the knowledge or consent about whether that was the right value for us to hold. So you're in the right place. Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Charlotte, I saw your hand.
My little hand. Yes, my timid little hand. Yes. Well, I'm here because I heard both of you speak and speak magnificently on values. And values is, something I'm extremely interested in. I mean, I know how to elicit them. I've listened to many different people and how they elicit it. And I've never been 100%. I just didn't feel like it nailed it 100%, whatever that means to me. And when I heard you two speak, I really loved what I heard, how you broke it down. So I was really and am really excited to be here today. I understand this is not your workshop, which I would love to take sometime, but I'm here out of openness and curiosity and excited to be here.
Excellent.
That's so great. Thank you. I think it's true. The values work is broad in a lot of ways, and how people interpret it it's supposed to be specific, but it often can feel vague. And also you get a set of core values, but how do you then use it? Integration is something I really focus on, and that's because it's key. If it's just a set of words, that's awesome, but how do you then make those words come to life and really mean something? And that's part of the process of trying the values on, because if you're not clear, like as Sheila was saying, we could inherit things that actually aren't our values, and then we think it's the value that is like, we're just not good enough because we're not matching the value. But in actuality, it's the value's not right. That we had to pick the wrong word or aligned with something that didn't match our truest self. So that's what this is about. And the values kind of connect us to how to operate out in the world and in our relationships, which is what we'll talk about a little bit today too.
It's fantastic.
We're really glad you're here.
Thank you.
Yeah. Terry.
Yeah, hi. I'm really glad I'm here. And I have been in this 1111 before and in the workshop. And I think at one point there was a question about who in your life, who out in the world sort of expresses a life that is a model for your core values. And I was asked that question, and because I'd been to these workshops, I had an answer, and I felt like I could answer a lot about why that person was the one, because of all these core values that we've been talking about. So it really came home to me that these kinds of discoveries come up in everyday life, in talking to people about things. And it was really important to know the answer. So thank you. I attributed it to this. Thank you.
Like, yay, I had the right answer. I love
That's a
that.
good answer. I had a
I mean,
really good
because it's like you really want to know. I mean, it's a great point, because having thought about it really supplied you with an answer that felt original. It felt right.
Yeah.
This is it. Yeah, this is, yeah. And to be able to express that is great. So I'm glad that the values work helped you with that. And again, the whole clarity piece, it just continues to grow. It just continues to grow. And that's the beautiful part for me in doing this work.
That's what I heard too, is thank you for sharing that. The clarity work is at the root of it too, because when we're not clear about ourselves too, then we can come from a place of more confidence and calm and peace, and then be able to respond as opposed to react to situations. And I find that the values work helps me connect to myself in a way, like almost instantly remind me of me and what matters to me. And then I'm more able to be less reactive in a sense. I think we lost Jackie. Sorry, I had to go onto my phone. Someone was asking for the link, so I had to look down for a little bit.
Oh, no worries. No worries. Perfect.
Jackie popped off, but hopefully she'll be able to get back on.
Okay, beautiful.
Thank you for sharing that, Terry. Haya, would you like to share a bit what brought you here today?
Hello, everyone. I'm just curious because the person I was when I was younger, I was helping people, and my core values are still morals. It's like my compass. But like I like integrity. It's in me. I'm not able to do what I used to do before for various reasons. I was pedestrian hit by a car.
Oh, wow.
And now I'm a person with disabilities with a chronic pain. And I'm just looking for meaningful activities or morals or core values, or just being, finding what's inspiring me. So this is, I'm very personal. I immediately go to too much information, but this is the type of person I am. I'm not like, sophisticated. I need help.
Well, you've come to the right place. I mean, I love what you said about you're not, you said you're not sophisticated, but it's like you give of yourself, right? You just show up. And I'm getting the sense that you will disclose and just be present with people because that's who you are. And that's such a beautiful way to understand part of what you value. Because for me, when I think about, when I hear you say that, I think about my own value of presence. And it really is about showing up and being there for people and being however I need to be, because that feels really genuine and important to me. So, and it's kind of like when you have we talked about this in the last month, we talked about life transitions, or just things that come up in life that really shift us in ways where we have to look at our values, because now we're in a different arena. So managing chronic pain is very different than living a life where that's not part of your consideration, and the choices and things that you do and how you move about in the world and how you experience life. And so, I mean, this is such a key part of getting clear about what this time means for you and how to have that same meaning and same inspiration that you had before, but maybe expressed in a slightly different way. And that's why the work is so powerful. Yes.
You hit the nail on the head, I would say. And I think the community is what I'm looking. So I joined, for example, the CBCT or mindfulness, compassion. So this is me. It's just me. I like the community. I like the resource of other people and how we shift. For example, I found meaning in breathing through my pain and sending love and compassion to other people. but I understand there is another levels to that. Where eventually, I need to make money. So I would like to hear other people and see, and they inspire me. Like Jerome said that he likes hunting and adventurous. You know, it's nice when I'm new to your program, so I haven't had the transition part or other workshop that you had. I will look at that too. But thank you very much. Thank you.
It's great. We're really glad you're here. And what the transition part, I'll just speak quickly about what that means is that when in our lives, for all of us, there's different points where there are turning points and transitions in our lives. Sometimes they are about growing older, age, they're in that natural way. And sometimes there are events that happen that put us in situations we hadn't expected. And each of those times, what I have found in my own personal life and my own personal stories is that there was a point where I needed to make a decision about what the next phase was going to be and how could I be myself in that next phase. And so this work really emerged out of that, recognizing that each of those turning points I discovered a value in each of those turning points. And when I left a career in the entertainment business, I really discovered my value of integrity and honest, and what that meant to me, not just the word, but really how to define it. And so, and throughout my life, when I became a mother, the value of connection really came into me. That was the value that emerged from that. So each of these times, and if what I thought was, wow, if I could help people get that earlier and all at once and have the set there, can we find a path to do that so that they could be informed each time? Not that what way I emerged wasn't good. It was just that one way. And I thought that the process itself could be really meaningful. So the turning points allow opportunity to grow and the decision to make, I want more fulfillment in my life. And oftentimes it's very true that there's an area of our life like career or work where we have kind of more confidence or clarity in one area, but not in another area. And how do we be able to bridge what we've learned in one to apply to the other? And I found that the values work does that. So integrity, while it originally came from my work and career, is something I've used in all my relationships, in my own health, in my own mothering, as well as these other values. And so it really becomes that inner compass that you mentioned, and these words and phrases really in an instant connect me back to what matters. So glad to be here.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Very good. Yes.
So let's see. Hold on one sec. Okay. Jerome, did you want to say a word or two?
It's my turn. I came to this work in a kind of circuitous route. I've been really into transcendental meditation ever since the 70s, and Maharishi Mahesh Yogi was a very big deal. And it really, I was pretty strung out, had a pretty rough life, dysfunctional family and all that. And but I was raised a Catholic, very, very strict Catholic. And as dysfunctional as that was, it was implanted in me that there was an absolute good, that there was a God that I could approach and see and touch, and I was an altar boy, and that hold up that host at communion and say, this is the body of Christ, and I believed it. I bought that whole hook, line, and sinker. And then in the Jesuit, I went to Jesuit high schools, and they say, give me a boy before he's 14 years old and I'll have him for life. And it's really true, because I've been searching, and they said, oh, we have the absolute answers, and they drill it into you like, I don't know what, but it's like brainwashing. But then when the 60s came around, I completely lost it, right? And lost that belief. I saw the hypocrisy of Catholicism and all that. And and so I got into, but then in the 70s, I got into transcendental meditation, and it gives you a technique, a path to the absolute, to God consciousness, you know. And but it's all about transcending the relative world, you know, be without detach from all the chaos. I mean, the world is a chaotic place. I mean, it's unbelievable how you know what the year we just went through, and the politics we just went through, and the stuff that's going on now, and what's been going on, you know, the prospect of nuclear annihilation, all that stuff. It's just insanity, you know. And my life was, despite the fact that it improved as a result of that practice and other spiritual disciplines, I was getting more and more detached from my daily life, you know, and I couldn't really participate 100% in what was going on. And I was really procrastinating on a lot of things and projects that I wanted to do, but I couldn't get myself to do it. And I've been friends with Amy for a long time, and we got together and she sucked me into this routine. But what I've come to realize doing this work is that transcendental meditation is a form of yoga, you know, and it's called the yoga of action. And it's not just like with you know, doing your yoga postures or whatever. It's that's part of it, but and then go and live in your life. In the yoga of action, it's the principle is yogasta kuru karmani, established in yoga, perform right actions. And how do you figure out what the right actions are? Like you were asking, Haya, you know, what do I do now? And the principle in this yoga of action is just meditate and it will come to you. You know, just do what's in front of your nose, but throw yourself into it 100%. You know, that it's not, your yoga practice is not just sitting and meditating. Your yoga practice is doing that twice a day and then throwing yourself 100% into whatever is in front of your nose right now, whatever your job is right now, whatever your challenge is right now, throwing yourself into it 100%. And that's the yoga. It's both of those things combined. It's the yoga of action. And so the reason I'm here is because to help me to clarify my action, clarify the direction my life is going in, clarify essentially what my dharma is, you know, what I'm on this planet, what am I supposed to be doing here? You know, like the song, what's it all about, Alfie? You know, I've been asking myself that question all my life. And it's up to me to figure that out. And this is the process that this discipline is all about, as far as I can see. Thank you.
Beautiful, as always. Jerome, you just have this way with words and expressing it. And you said so many powerful things. I love that, performing right action. And, you know, values are definitely a vehicle, a pathway, a compass, a guide to performing that right action, whatever that is for you. And yeah, it's so powerful to have that clarity from so many. There's never just one thing. There's so many different ways. There's so many doors to enter to find that clarity, and values is one of them, as well as TM and so many other things. And so it's like when you combine all of those and just, and I probably every single time talk about presence, because I think for me, presence, the value of presence and radiating presence encompasses so much around, yes, just be here now, you know, what is right in front of you, you know, throw yourself, radiate all of that in the moment, and not be lost in the thought forms and what happened before and what you're thinking about in the future. And then from that place, right action occurs, right? Because it's the next thing, And it's just such a powerful way of being and remembering. So thank you for that reminder, which really leads us right into the whole point around why we're here today, which is just this learning more about it, getting clear. Well, we had a topic that we thought might be interesting, which was around values in relationships, and not just You know, we're not talking about just romantic relationships, because if we were, I probably wouldn't be on this Zoom call today because I don't have much to add in that arena at the moment. But it's just about always, I mean, all relationships. I think about the number of encounters that you have in a day, whether it be just casual relationships that you have with people, you know, at the supermarket, and family, friends, this colleagues, so many different ways that we're relating and interacting with people, and that the values come into play. So just kind of want to explore what that's like, what that is like for you. How does knowing your values help you in your relationships? Because it's like that is such a rich part of how we learn. You know, it's great to be in this meditative place and isolated, but when you start interacting with people, that's when the rubber really meets the road. You know, that's when you truly start to bump up against the things that might be conflicts, or ways in which there's not quite the same similarity that you thought, or you might have what might be common interests, but not necessarily common values. And so all that begins to show up. So today we just wanted to explore that whole realm of values and relationships. So would anybody like to start? Just like, how does knowing your values help you in your relationships?
Sure, it's Jackie. Hey, I've had to have a lot of acceptance that other people, even that I'm in relationships with, don't have to have my values. You know, I think that I had the naivety thinking that that people I were in relationship had to have my alignment of values, and actually that's not served me. So it's like, for me, just being in alignment with my own values has been important. But as I am true to the alignment of my own values, I have learned that those who are in alignment with my values stick around, and those who aren't drift off. Thanks.
Yeah, go ahead, Sheila.
No, I'm saying that's really, yeah, wow, that's a good one. You know, I always think that same way, Jackie, that the people that are there in your life, they're there, and the ones that where you're not vibrating or resonating, they tend to fall off. Yeah, I always say they disqualify themselves because there's something that happens, either subtle or it's like very huge. You know, like if there's like this place where there's this discomfort because something isn't connecting and there's not alignment, then you know we're seeking to have that balance. So they will fall away. And that's like one of the clearest indications of whether you're really aligned with somebody or not, right? Whether they stick around. So that what you said is very rich. I really appreciate that.
I always think of it as like bandwidth or
We lost you.
like alignment.
Oh,
There
so,
you are.
so can you say that again, Jackie? We heard bandwidth, but then after that, I didn't hear anything.
Oh, sure. It's I said that it's, to me, it's like holding alignment to your own values, like a loose garment, as we're taught, you know, but it's yours. And that, like, who resonates with that alignment, like a vibration, will stick around and those won't. But sometimes even in the disruption of the chaos of a misalignment of values, so much happens on the other side of that too. Really, we're seeing that like globally in a weird way.
For sure. Absolutely. And I think that's where Jerome was talking about performing right action. That can get really tricky in a world of complexity, because what looks right for one, or how do you define right or good, or things get kind of polarized. And what the values work is more nuanced, and it becomes really about clarity for self. And one of the things I liked about this general concept of values and relationships, it could be called values in other people, you know, but that didn't sound so good. And at the same time, it's values, as you talked about, Jackie, with the value, like getting really with our relationship with ourself. And the values are a really clear way to know ourselves in a deeper way. And I have found that when there is a misalignment or when things have fallen off, I've gotten even clearer about my values for myself. And I've also learned about that it's not always black and white. Here, I'll give an example. So one of my values is connection, and it shows up in different ways for me. Connection is about meditating is part of my value of connection because it's connecting to my spirit, my soul, myself. Yoga is part of my value of connection because it means connecting to my body, as well as dancing with my kids and my daughters in the kitchen for our kitchen dance parties, because that's about connection to them and joy and having fun. So my value of connection, being here with all of you, I am satisfying my value of connection by showing up here and having this live Zoom. During when the lockdown first started last March, April, I'm Jewish, and I usually light Shabbat candles on Friday night. And so I started with my family suggesting that we all Zoom together. I have family in the East Coast, and I have family in my immediate family of origin in Washington. And so we lit Shabbat candles and did a little Shabbat service with the kids, the cousins, every Friday night. And we've been doing it for a year. And it really met my value of connection, as well as gratitude and grace. And it was a really nice grounding thing to do each week to set off a difference when we're all locked down at the time and light beautiful candles and have a spiritual moment together. I also found that, yes, it's my family of origin, and sometimes things got a little uncomfortable, a little funky, and that the Zoom naturally ended. It was my mom's Zoom, and it ended after 45 minutes. And what I started to find is that at a certain point, I started to get disconnected. I tuned out. I disconnected from myself. And what I realized was, because sometimes at the 45 minutes, we would call back in to do it again. And I did it 1 or 2 times, and that did not work for me. So my value of connection lasted for 45 minutes. And then after 45 minutes, it became a disconnection. So I was able to show up and honor myself, but it was that sense of disconnection at 45 minutes where I realized, okay, this is a boundary. This is a time for me to stop. I hit my limit, because then I was no longer in my integrity of being in connection. And I would say things that I wouldn't even know why I said, like I just realized, or I feel pressure to do something else. And so for me, I set the boundary of being very present, there in connection. And then when disconnection hit, I'm like, okay, this is my cue that was enough. And it was meaningful. And then I keep showing up because it was just enough. So it was a clue to my boundaries. It was a clue to my relationships, so where it wasn't black and white. Because there was a time in my life I would have stopped calling in. I would have just said, this doesn't work for me. Instead, it was actually the values that helped me see that in a different way and allowed me to have some nuance to it. And because my mom is 77, and I love being on these calls with her. I love being with my siblings for a certain amount of time. And I love seeing my nieces and nephews and lighting the candles together. So that's why the conversation is so powerful to me, to talk about relationships, because it can really help guide us in a different way than I would have been able to do before without it.
That's such a great example, Amy. And I was thinking that you were honoring the value of connection throughout, because like you said, the values are so nuanced, and like the connection, disconnection, it's like the flip side of the other, right? So connection with them at some point meant disconnection to you. So then you had to reconnect with you, which meant disconnecting from them. So it's still the connection, but it's like, okay, so now which part of the connection is the part that I really need to honor in this moment, right? So it's like shifting, but still throughout, it seems like you were honoring connection, but it's like, wait a minute, if I connect with them and I feel disconnected from myself, then I need to look at that, because that no longer works. So now I'm losing something. instead of gaining. So it's like then using your emotions, your feelings, your sense of the moment. So like be that guide, right? That internal compass that tells you, okay, now I need to make the shift, because if I want to honor this, I'm going to honor it in all ways. And the best way to honor my connection with my family and my connection with myself is to set a boundary. And then to like say, okay, it's like that's good. We're good. We're good.
Right.
That's enough. Yes. That's really powerful. That's very powerful.
And the boundaries for myself. The boundary isn't about controlling anybody else, what they're going to say, what they're going to do. It's none about that. It's doing it joyfully too, where I say, oh, great, I'm going to go, walk the dogs or make dinner, and I don't have to explain it. I just keep it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. Because you don't have to make somebody wrong and make yourself right. It's just about, this is what works for me. So it's just that honoring, they're not wrong for how they are. It's just different, the vibration is different, and it's time to like really identify that. I mean, I relate to that so much because of, my own family of origin as well. Families are families. And there are four girls now. There used to be 5 of us, and both of my parents are no longer here, and so we try to connect, and we do the same thing with the Zoom, and there's a point in time when that kind of like started to disintegrate. So actually we have one sister who's not participating in the Zoom because of something that happened and how she felt about it. But it's like, okay, so I can really still have that sense of connection and use my value of leading with compassion. So being compassionate and understanding that I don't have all the answers, or I don't need to like figure out why she's feeling how she's feeling. I just need to honor that and accept it and be compassionate about it. So this is where she is in her life right now, and that's okay, and still do what I need to do. So it's like, it's always about being more expansive rather than choosing to contract and make things like narrow and small and black and white. And the values really helps me to do that, to just kind of like keep it open. It's like, okay, that's yeah, she'll come back or she won't, but that's okay. It's still good. We still love each other. And so this may not be the right forum for her, and that's okay. So the other 2, we every Sunday at 5 o'clock we're doing our thing, and it's great. It's a lot of fun. So yeah, so that just really hit home in terms of how in a relationship, being clear about those values becomes so important, making it work.
Beautiful. That's a great demonstration of it too. Both on Zoom, both with our family of origin.
Right.
But great learning opportunities and opportunities to grow. Yes.
So what about for others? How do the values show up for you in relationships? Yes, Terry.
So I have a relationship with my younger sister, since we're talking about immediate family. And my younger sister has been very ill since about, longer than when she went to the hospital. But and I got into this mode of rescue. I took care of all the details of her life. And then when she got better, she didn't want to pick it back up again. She wanted me to continue, paying for everything and paying the bills and making sure she had all her appointments and calling her when she had an appointment. She didn't want to pick it back up. And piece by piece, I've given it back to her by way of, now she has a 5-day-a-week person who comes to help her for 4 hours, and it's covered by social services. And I tell that person, this is what she needs to do. And I would like to stop taking care of this. So can you include it in your daily thing? So just giving it back. And recently she's been in trouble with paying her rent because of COVID and all these disabilities that have occurred. And I started filing the papers for getting money to pay the back rent that she hadn't paid through this federal program. And I realized I was spinning my wheels. I would ask her for a paper, like a document, and she would send me, you know, like a little corner of a picture of the document. And I would say, I only got the corner, the left corner of this page because, and then, so I sent it back to her. I said, have your helper do this. All your papers are in your house. You don't know how to send them to me in a picture. Do it at your house with your helper. She can call me. I'll answer any questions, but take it back. So it's like I'm having to redefine my relationship with her after having spent 2 years really taking care of everything. And one of the biggest things that's helped with that is that I was in a really bad car accident and I haven't driven for 4 months. And usually I would drive down there 3 or 4 times a week. And so this, my own health has made a boundary that has helped me see how many other boundaries I can make by just deciding not to drive. So the positive and the negative, both. Yeah. Thank you.
Wow. I was thinking as you were talking about what values might be at play for you. And, you know, you definitely, the boundary part is just so huge. It's such a huge part of really honoring whatever that is, you know, whether it's self-reliance, whether it's, you know, accountability, whether it's, you know, just honoring yourself, whatever it is that you're doing, whatever is coming into play, you have a lot of clarity, it seems to me, about, okay, I'm giving, and there's a limit to the giving because at some point then it drains me. So it takes away from me. So I have to be mindful of how much I give and the ways in which I give so that I can continue to give and to be that support without being a crutch. And just kind of taking that back for yourself is like, wow, that's really powerful work. And the fact that it happened, part of it happened as a result of you not being able to do what you would habitually do, which would be hop into your car. It's like that beautiful universe giving us exactly what we need. And they're helping us, you know, to like, you know, okay, so here's a limitation. So now I've got to work through this limitation. So how am I going to do this now with this limitation, with this change, you know, and still make it work and still be that loving presence for both of you, for yourself and for her. That's really important. I have had times when I have been the caregiver for family members, and it's a tremendous amount of work. It's a tremendous amount of responsibility, and setting that boundary is just really so powerful. And I imagine that your values and being clear about what they are is helping you to guide you through this process.
And keeping us out of any kind of childhood conflict. I mean,
Right.
the conflicts from childhood stay with you your whole life. And I started finding myself really angry at her because she prefers to be dependent and I prefer to be independent. And so that right there was like, until she got a helper, it really, and until I stopped driving, it really was entering into old family, you know, family of origin stuff.
Those family of origin dynamics, those patterns. Yeah, boy, are they entrenched. I imagine that some of that is operating in my situation as well. You know, and yeah, exactly. So like sometimes you have the breakthrough and you can move to the next level and not that be the thing that deters you from still having that connection with her. That's powerful.
Yes, and I think the boundaries are so important too, because they also can allow, I imagine too, that the relationship, thank you, Terry, first of all, for sharing all of that. And the idea that the boundaries allow us also to see where we can align then, right? Because if I'm in disconnection or anger or resentment, blame, whatever, judgment of self or others, then I'm not really present. I'm not connected. I'm not in gratitude and grief. I'm not in any of my values in that way. So knowing my values can also help me align with, oh, okay, I can see that my sister shares this value of mine, maybe not these others in this way, but it can help bridge a way back as well when there has been a break too in that regard, because you're still showing up for her, but you're doing it without giving up on yourself. And that's the beauty of it. And there are many different paths out there to help us have that ownership of self. And I think, and the values do connect us to ourselves in a different way and help us in a real moment be able to remember that too, by creating our own personal guidance system, our own personal inner compass. Did you see, are there any words of your own values that showed up in this, like the actual value from that you've identified show up in this that have come to play that you would want to share?
A value of mine is, you know, to be on time and be competent about all kinds of paperwork that needs to be done. And so in that way, her own opposite value, I guess, or not, lack of clarity on those values, showed up as conflict because it was taking all of my time, and her incompetence was costing me more time and costing me, my value is to stay in connection, but I was disconnecting with resentment. And so to stay in this value of connection, I had to figure out how to give it back to her. And now that she has a caregiver, I was able to guide her to see how I'm not just throwing it away. I'll answer any questions your caregiver has. I'll help, but I'm not going to take it on as a whole piece, because my time is being abused. So to not be abused is another value, or taken for granted. So yeah.
And the competency, right? It would affect if your value is competency, which you talked about with the time and being competent, then paying attention to somebody else's life in that way will affect your own ability to be present and competent in your own life. So again, having to choose between her versus yourself then is another way that showed up. And that competency for your own way of living is so important to do. Right. Another cue, another way to look at it. To value yourself. Again, remember, core values helped us connect us to our most authentic and truest self in that way. So thank you for sharing this.
It's such a perfect example of how values really values get tested in a relationship. So that value of competency really was put to the test because of her not being as punctual and as thorough and as invested in the process as you were, and how that really helped you to identify like some really good solution, a powerful solution for yourself that could still honor that, like, I'm willing to do my part, but then here's a part that you can do, and I'm passing this on to you and your caregiver. It's like, that's like really, that's so good.
So
that's so healthy. That's so healthy. It's like really, absolutely. I applaud it.
Who else has a question or thought on using your values in relationship. Doesn't have to be with your family, immediate family, could be any other relationship.
Well, it's Jackie. I would love to say that a lot of things are showing up in the worldscape that are definitely not in alignment with my personal values. And so it's been a journey of taking real self-responsibility for my experiences. Like, so one of my affirmations that I use is I take responsibility for the experience of what I am experiencing. And because it keeps me, it's like just being very detached, practicing an extraordinary amount of detachment from just what's different things that are transpiring that definitely aren't in alignment with my values, like holding my own truth but not impressing that upon anybody else is just been it's like a mastery to me of relational value practice. I don't know if anybody has any other thoughts on that.
I love that part about the mastery because that's really where we learn. I think that one of the biggest ways that we learn is through relationships, through our interactions. I mean, it's like great to meditate and to do everything else and to be just kind of like in my little peaceful Zen state. But then I learn more about myself when I have to really like live my values, live whatever is happening, and I'm in the moment. So that's where the real juice is. I mean, for me, it's like, okay, that's where I get to keep learning. And you talk about that journey of taking self-responsibility for your experience. I think that too is like, yes, absolutely, because it's the story. It's my viewpoint. It's my viewpoint that now I'm imposing upon reality, and that's going to shape how I experience it, right? So
right, Sheila, I like what you're saying, because it's like having your values and then holding your value as not right or wrong.
Yes.
Like it's like holding your own value in a sort of a value judgment, but holding your own value stake in a neutral space. Right,
exactly. Not everybody else's, and having that be okay. Ultimately having that be okay, because that's where the suffering happens. I mean, all the dissonance and the suffering happens when we're not accepting what is, right? I mean, it's arguing with reality, arguing with what is, arguing with the differences that you experience in people, and when there's just this enough spaciousness to kind of accept that, doesn't mean that you have to agree, but you still are holding your own integrity and your own sense of values, but still being expansive enough to allow that this is the process and this is the evolution of other people, and all of that is ultimately okay. It certainly makes life a lot easier. It certainly does for me. I constantly have to revisit that. I mean, just another really quick example, just kind of a bit of an aside, but it relates to people. So one of the things that I love to do is to take a walk on the beach in the evening. And so I notice the ebb and flow of not only the way that the environment changes, but the people in it, right? So the last 2 weeks have been spring break. So as I'm coming back from my walk, or as I'm walking close to the shore, I notice a lot more people, and I notice a lot more litter. Right. So like litter for me is like this thing that just ignites my whole, it's my pet peeve.
Yeah.
I'm so passionate about the environment. To see litter, I start to get judgmental. It's like, what's wrong with you? It's like, why do you come here to enjoy this beautiful space and leave it like this? Who has that kind of consciousness? So this is the kind of stuff that I'm starting to think. I'm walking. So now I'm disrupting my own like beautiful experience of the beach, right? Because now I'm arguing with reality, saying that there shouldn't be any litter here. Well, there is litter here. And these people are here, and they are enjoying themselves, and they have a different level of consciousness. And I want to figure out something to do with it. But I've had to look at how even that, it's like coming up against something that's like, I think it should be different, but it's not. So I can still honor my value, my reverence for life, my reverence for nature, and how I see beauty, and still be expansive enough to like lead with compassion, lead with understanding, know that everybody's not going to have the same level of consciousness about that I do. And that's part of what I might be able to do something to address that, and like, maybe work with an organization that, provides more trash cans, right, when it gets busy, so that this is not the issue, rather than being judgmental and blamey and everything else about this not being the way it should be. So it's like having that more kind of an expanded sense of like, okay, I can accept this, but I'm not going to fight it, because when I fight it, now I'm not aligned, I'm in dissonance, so it just shows up in a lot of different ways.
That is a perfect example of all of that. Yes. And it is so frustrating to see all of that. And
oh my goodness.
Sometimes our values can conflict too in the moment as well. And that's hard to understand how to prioritize them as well. And
yes.
And one of my values is sustainability, but how do I not be self-righteous about that? Because that gets back to that idea that value isn't right or wrong, good or bad. We're really taught that they were. And so part of the work is breaking that old link, because it's not good or bad. It just is, as Sheila was saying. And then how do we then take right action for ourselves around that? So on the beach, is it, for me, partially doing the core values workshop helps people build more consciousness that they care about the earth. Maybe could that possibly help people become aware that they maybe won't litter? I don't know if any of those people would ever be on a workshop like this. You never know. And having the conversation certainly helps. Or, as you said, getting involved in some way to bring more trash cans to the beach.
It's the solution.
It creates that, getting back to what Jerome said earlier, it creates that list of right action, or I would say the list of integrated action, the aligned action, because it's not ignoring what happened on your walk. Okay, what can I do about it? Because it bothered me, but it's not going to the judgment. It's going into, okay, what can I do? This aligns with my value. For me, it'd be like, okay, my value of sustainability means I don't want to ignore that. There's a problem here. Is there something I can do in my little space to help that?
Right.
And it's
and my value of reverence for life includes all of life, and includes people as well as the planet. So, right. So it's like, okay, just get off your high horse and figure out, that this is the current state, and what can you do about it? And then just be more accepting, and, that this is the way that it currently shows up. I mean, hopefully it won't always be this way, but it is in this moment. Right. I have that be okay. Yeah, it gives me a lot more peace.
A lot more peace, right? And then the ability to be clear about what, if there is or isn't anything to do about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's where that I love the right action part, because that's where that comes from. It comes from that. Yeah.
Right.
What can I do?
And in our workshops, we take apart, our sixth step is about creating a list of aligned actions, because it's really about saying, okay, what's happening right now? What's actually happening? How do we want it to be? And then what are the actions we can take to make our to make our current situation, our aspirational, and then those aligned actions. So that
absolutely
come from those moments.
Yes.
That.
Yes. Yes.
And our own awareness and our relationships help us to see those relationships to ourselves, relationships to others. So.
I see that we are now at our final minute. And the time always flies. It's like, oh, okay, here we are. So I just wanted to allow space for anybody that did not get a chance to speak or has any final comments or thoughts before we conclude our session today.
This is Charlotte. I just want to say this was great. And I loved how the conversation took on different perspectives of values, and this whole thing about being in conflict with others values. I love the whole thing about letting go of the judgment and stepping into acceptance,
Mhm.
because seriously, that is a way to let go of suffering. And what's also what, Sheila, what you kind of were touching on is that it's an opportunity to be our personal best. If we focus back into our own values, look for a solution and get on with it. So this was a very powerful conversation, and thank you for letting me be a part of it.
Oh, thank you so much for being a part of it too, Charlotte. Yes, absolutely. Well stated. Appreciate that.
Thank you for that reflection.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Jerome?
Jerome?
I just want to thank you guys for putting this on. It really is. It's like a cold shower, actually, once a month. Very invigorating.
In the best way, right?
In the best way. Oh yeah, they said it. That I take cold shower, not every day, but most days, because it's just supposed to be good for you. Actually, anti-aging, so forth. And but I just want to put in one of the expressions that's helped me a lot in relationships, because I'm a real procrastinator and avoider and isolator, is the phrase, do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. And to keep that commitment has simplified my life in so many ways, because there's so often I make a commitment to doing something and then 2 or 3 other things pop up that I'd rather do. But just by sticking to that value, that principle, and doing the first thing that I committed to, it's funny how it always works out for the best, and the other things get taken care of or manifest in a different way at a different time. So thank you. Just throw that in. Thanks for doing it.
Love it.
Thank you, Jerome. I had to laugh because actually my definition for integrity is those exact words, like do what I say I'm going to do, walk the walk, talk the talk. So it is that, for me, that is my integrity, what you just described. And,
Wow. Yeah.
and how in our workshop, there's a step where we actually write a description of what our values mean to us. And so in mine, those are the first phrase of words. So it warms my heart to hear that. So thank you.
Well, I just want to thank everybody for showing up today. All the right people were here for this time that we shared together this past hour. I so look forward to next month, and hopefully you can join us, if not next month, on another 11:11 call. We do this every month on the 11th at 11 o'clock a.m. and it varies. Sometimes it's Thursdays, sometimes it's Sundays. We just go with the flow and keep our 11:11 commitment because to having this conversation. So thank you so much for showing up, for sharing, and we look forward to however we connect again and to continue this dialogue and doing this powerful work together.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Meet you and be with you for this hour.
Yes.
Thank you very
Bye.
much. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Bye.
Bye.
I just really